And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Bones Hour with your special DJ guest today with Joel and Rico.
Hi, how's it going?
And we are excited to be here today. We have a special guest, but we want to give a big shout-out to Mark Purnell, our Bones Hour host. He is actually on a really short vacation before he has a busy weekend ahead of announcing some races and doing some other things. So he gave us the keys to the radio station today. So we're here to get things going and talk about Crossman, everything that is Crossman. This is our Bones Hour, and we have today a very special guest that we are thrilled is with us. We are thrilled that he is part of our team for 2014, and we are just so excited to have a chance to talk to him. So we'd like to welcome Mike Hardiak to our show. Mike is our drill designer for 2014, has done a fantastic job, and he's here for our April camp. So welcome, Mike, to you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Mike, I guess let's just get started and dive right into everything. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you came to be on the Crossman team for 2014.
Well, it's been a long road, but I'm glad that it ended here in San Antonio. I actually grew up in northern Indiana, city of Fort Wayne, was born and raised there, and was blessed enough to come up through some great musical programs that piqued my interest in the activity. I went to Northrop High School, and in the mid-'80s, Northrop was one of the better bands in the entire world, and some great people went through that program, not the least of which was Gary Chapinski. And so I was fortunate enough to be taught by him and some other great designers. Dan Potter was an instructor of mine when I was in high school. Fell in love with it immediately. One thing led to another, and I started working for Northrop's marching band as I was going through Ball State to get my degree in education. And the road kept going. A gentleman named Bosco Brown was an instructor, and next thing you know, Bosco's got me teaching for the 25th place corps at the time, the Glassmen from Toledo, Ohio.
Yes.
And that's how the drum corps got me.
What year was that?
You're going to make me say my age.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. We all know I'm old. That was in the late 80s. It was 88 was my first season there. So I was lucky enough to be there for them when they made the climb. Back when there were a bunch of corps, I was there when they were 25th, and I was there when they were 18th and 13th and 12th. And when we made the climb together, I was very fortunate to be able to make the climb. So
Sure.
The payoff was a lot greater.
Absolutely. And so the Glassman team, I'm just trying to think back. I'm not quite as old as you, Mike, but certainly know a little bit about that. So early 90s, what are we talking, 92, I think they made the top 12?
Yes, for the first time. It was great. We actually made the top 12 the same year as the Colts did
cool.
in Buffalo. So it was great. They kind of made the rise with us.
Okay.
And
it was 90 then, so 90 in
Yeah,
Buffalo.
blessed time. A lot of great instructors came together there and provided a great experience for the members of Northwest Ohio and parts unknown.
And absolutely, and that's cool because that was, just for our drum corps historical perspective, that was 1 year, I guess, after Crossman made it back into the top 12 for the first time. It had been a few years since they had been in there. So that's pretty cool. So 89 Crossman were in. 90, we've got the Glassman and the Colts in for around the first time, and so from there it just keeps on going.
Yeah,
so
great years for drum corps.
And then you haven't been very active, I guess, in the drum corps community over the last, 20 years or so, more or less? Or
well, yeah, a little bit less, but I came to a decision that I had set some goals that were competitive as far as the marching band realm, but I also set some goals in my own personal life. And as we all know, sometimes you have to give up one thing to have another. Mm-hmm. I made a decision that maybe it was time to let someone else do the summers, and made some good choices, started volunteerism, and learned a lot of lessons over the last 20 years about giving back to the community. I've been very involved in the Shrine Children's Hospitals, involved in some local things. I've designed throughout, had some success outside and some success in WGI in both the Winter Guard and Winter Percussion. And the roads that set before you and mine just led me to San Antonio.
Sure. Now, we've talked a little bit about, sort of like you just said, that you've taken a step outside of the drum corps community and been involved in a lot of marching bands. We've heard a lot of great success about the marching bands that you've been designing for in the last couple of years. So talk to us a little bit about that. Homestead High School, is that right?
Yeah, there's the Big Blue team from Homestead, and they've been my mainstay for the last 25 years. I started with them directly out of high school. They've had some great success, but you better be successful when every single weekend you see Avon and Carmel and Lawrence Central, and much like Texas, Indiana's crazy for marching band. And I've done some groups that have competed at BOA when Norwell had their run, and since then, and then I was actually the founder of the Plan B Percussion Ensemble from Fort Wayne, Indiana. Okay. 3-time medalist at WGI. So I didn't leave the activity.
Sure. The focus became a little bit different, but sounds like, not different, but in different ways, perhaps, than just being involved in, like you are now with Crossman and Drum Corps. So here we are, it's 2014. You're now sitting at the table here for getting ready to kick off our 2014 season. We're only, a month away now from spring training. We're just a few days away from our April camp. So here you are. So now, how does it feel so far, I guess? Tell us a little bit about your experience, I guess, with the Crossmen.
It's been an honor. It was kind of funny. I received a phone call very late one night from Eddie Devlin, and he made a little bit of small talk, and he said, well, what are your plans? And I said, well, in all honesty, I've spent a lot of time getting to where I am now, and I'm thinking about cutting back and maybe retiring. And there was this big, long silence. And he said, I'm not calling because I want you to retire. And I said, oh, well, let's talk. And the honest truth was, it was an absolute perfect fit. I had some responsibilities in the nonprofit sector for the last 5 years, and I'm glad that I did it, and I'm also glad it's over. And so it freed my schedule up to be able to give the Crossman members and the Crossman as a whole everything that they need from me and deserve to have. It was kind of a no-brainer after that, and I talked to Eddie about what some of my goals would be. I didn't necessarily just say yes to have the job. I said, well, this is what I think I can do to help the organization as a whole, and build a team that stays together and continues the success. And ultimately, I'm really trying to make sure that every decision I make is to the benefit of the membership. Everything else takes care of itself if you take care of the members.
Absolutely. Talk to us a little bit about, like you just mentioned, the continuity of staff. From your perspective and being involved with so many marching band groups and WGI groups and drum corps and this and that and the other, how important is that today? Because I don't think we see that same kind of continuity maybe in many organizations from year to year. What does that look like to you?
And that's a shame because the constant hiccups in what the kids get to learn if you have a different instructor in front of you every single year. As instructors and designers, I think you have a belief in the way you go about things, and if there is constant change, it affects the membership and it affects their experience. One of the first conversations Eddie and I had was about what I would do with the visual staff at the Crossman, and I said, not a thing. They're doing a fabulous job. Drum Corps is a little bit different than in marching band. In marching band, a lot of the programs, I hire the staff. Sure. The people who clean what I design, I have a hand in. And coming into the marching band realm, the Drum Corps realm, it's different. But let me be completely honest. The first time I met Brad and Adam and Tony and Rick and all the way down the line, I couldn't have done a better job for putting a group of men together to get my ideas out on the field. I am overjoyed with the talent of those guys. I've stuck really close with Brad in making sure that not only I have input for him, because sometimes I feel like the visual staff's dad because I'm 20 years older than them. But we've really tried to make sure that we have a wrap-up session at the end of all of the camps, so that they're getting what they need from me, and I'm getting what they want from them. It's been a match made in heaven. I couldn't have done a better job. I really do think that some of the best people in the entire world have landed together in San Antonio, and the timing's just perfect.
That's awesome. Very good. Rico?
Yeah, right now when you were talking about the transition from drum corps and the high school you designed for, I have a question here on our Facebook page from Michelle Williams. She's a alumni of the Corps, and she was asking, how is designing for a huge band such as the Homestead Spartan Alliance different from DCI, and what are the differences from that?
Well, Michelle, there are a lot of differences. A lot of times with the high school bands, you're really trying to keep things in check. You don't want to overdo the musicians. You don't want to overthink the program. I hate when I feel like I have to have a libretto to watch any show. Hopefully I'm intelligent enough to get it.
Program notes.
Yes, program notes. So with a lot of my high school programs, which I actually have been in meetings with all this week, we're trying to make sure that we're not taking all the risks. Where the first meeting that I met with the Crossman design team, everybody is very talented, so everybody has input, and they are educated. An example would be everybody on the brass staff has been around the activity long enough to be able to give me input to help me do my job as the visual designer a little bit better. Whether it be, hey, we're going to sound better if you put us in this form. We're going to sound better if you stack us in a different way. With drum corps, everybody is in an exceptional height. They're in the prime of their career. So there is a lot more of great information coming back into me, where in marching band sometimes I have to take the reins.
Interesting. I was just thinking a little bit about the first time you came to camp. So we're going into April, so it was February, right?
Correct.
February camp. And we had a brief conversation afterwards, and I think you sent us a quick text message just talking about your time at camp that weekend. And I remember you were talking about it was great to come and see the Crossman machine kind of in whatever capacity that is. I wondered if you might just, what are your observations? I mean, we do have some people that will kind of come in and out of the organization, or there's been some turnover in some recent years of some different captions or whatever. So I'm always kind of curious. I think we're always curious. What are some first impressions that you had coming into the organization?
Well, the Crossmen look like a drum corps, and that may initially sound silly, but when you think about the people we compete with, sometimes it looks like a ragtag band of rebels rolling into the parking lot hoping for the best. From the very beginning, from the administrative staff, from the people who are going to get us to where we need, get us the things we need, it's been done with the utmost professionalism. There are sometimes this activity allows people who might approach it as if it's not a business, but if you're bringing money in and writing checks and sending money out, it has to be a business. And I think that's why the Crossmen have been able to stay afloat and been able to still create a great experience for the membership no matter where they're at. And it's sometimes you have to learn how to be a drum corps, and all the way from, the membership has to learn that mommy's not here to tuck them in at night and mommy's not here to wake them up, and the staff needs to learn that we're dealing with the highest quality of student and member that are available for us to teach. I've been overwhelmed and had nothing but great thoughts just about the way that the Crossman machine, and it is a machine, sure. If you put in all the right information, the right product's going to come out. And from the last 6 months since I've been on the Crossman staff, and proud to call myself a Crossman, I've seen that the Crossmen do things better than any other organization I've ever been part of.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And I think right there, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Mike, our drill designer for 2014 for Crossman. This is the Bones Hour. Welcome back. This is the Bones Hour. We are here live with Rico and Mike Hardiak, our drill designer for 2014. Mark Purnell, our normal radio personality, is on a short little vacation this afternoon, so he allowed us to have the keys to the radio station, and we're plugging in and having a great time talking with our folks here in Crossman Land. So to get back to Mike, who's here visiting with us, our special guest, I had hoped maybe you could talk a little bit about our 2014 production. And no, folks, we're not going to be giving away any special show announcements just yet, but I can tell you that announcement is coming very, very soon. Keep in mind there is a camp happening this weekend, so I think we might find out a little bit about the 2014 show this weekend. Mike, tell us a little bit about the design. I think maybe some of our listeners might be curious to know a little bit about the design process, not only from your end, but just the beginning. And I think everyone sort of understands drum corps to happen between June and August. And I would say there's probably some things that are happening prior to that. Maybe you could just comment a little bit on that and talk to us about that.
Yeah, we actually started putting our show together the first weekend in November on a Sunday morning. It was the day after Indiana State Finals, so a lot of the design team was going to be in Indianapolis anyways. It's a very odd dynamic, especially the first time any design team has to go through that. You're dealing with people that you've never met. I've never shaken their hand. I've just known their product. And you wake up and you have breakfast and you go sit in a room and get started. Luckily, we didn't have to deal with the first hurdle that a lot of organizations do. Nobody really kind of brought their ego with them. I think the entire design team is confident in their abilities, but nobody brought an ego with them. And it really kind of helped get the ball started. At 10 o'clock, in all honesty, there were ideas just kind of being thrown against the wall and see what sticks. And you might say something and look around the room at the faces of the rest of the designers to see if they seem interested or whether you've just come up with the silliest idea. So you kind of pitch your ideas. I always call it selling the car. And everybody maybe has an idea that they bring, and then you try to sell that car. And sometimes people buy the car, and sometimes people don't. And we started off, and it didn't. The honest truth was, after the first hour, you didn't know if we were going to even have any sort of show when we all left each other. The goals might have been changed to, hey, let's just kind of get a direction and not have a show. But as we got more comfortable with each other and just started talking about what we need to be, the ideas came freer and faster. You know, we are the Crossmen. We have a persona. We have that swagger. We have things that we must build a show around. So, you know, you start with that being your goal. That's the look, that's the sound, that's the Crossman. And then once we got to that point, it led to more and more ideas. What characters can we be? What shows can we pick based upon the character that we want to be? And I think I speak for the entire design staff. When we left Indianapolis on that Sunday afternoon, we knew we were going to be great in 2014.
That's fantastic. I mean, that kind of process, I think, is probably the side of things where it's sort of the least common or public knowledge. I mean, about those types of events, and even within the organization. Did Fred or did Ed or any of the guys at that level of the organization charge you guys with was there anything specific? Did they give you any kind of restrictions or any kind of keep you in a box on any of that stuff? I don't know if that's the right terminology, but just trying to think if there was anything that they set up that said it's got to be this or it's got to be this, or we don't want to end soft or something like that. I don't know.
Well, and it does. I think Eddie is a great proponent of just being accessible to the audience and not overthinking it. Initially, Eddie let us run pretty free. About halfway through the meeting, Fred walks in the room, and there's a hush because now the boss is here.
Sure.
And it was my first time meeting him, so there was a definite hush. And, I think Fred was really good at just setting up the goals for what he wanted the membership to be able to have access to and the experience that he wanted them to have. Fred's really good at not talking about the competitive outcome because that does take care of itself if you do everything else. Mm-hmm. Fred's mandate that day to us was make something that the audience is going to enjoy and the audience is going to support. And, if the audience stands on their feet and clap, at the end of the opener, then you know you're doing something right. And then the membership gets happy. Happy membership leads to a good product. So we did get direction, but most of it was just trying to make sure that we went out and looked like the Crossmen.
Would you say the 2014 show is exciting?
Yeah, every part of it, start to finish. We did a really good job of storyboarding it, and tomorrow night or whenever that great announcement will be made, we'll actually talk to the membership about that storyboard and how all the pieces fit together. And I think it's exciting because it's character-driven, and it's a cool character. It's something everybody will latch onto right away. It's something that is not a stretch. All of us will experience together.
The music, I think, as you've been in the visual design process of this, and what are the things that you latched onto, or that in your process that you latch on from a musical standpoint to say, okay, I know that I got to do this, and I'm sure there are those moments that come along. I would assume with any kind of design process that you're trying to pick out those moments where you can, that really show off this, or you can make sure you're going to get people to applaud here, or you're going to do those things. But what are some visual elements, I think, that kind of come to mind that we've got to put this in to make this happen, or in your thought process?
Yeah, the design team probably gets tired of this word, but I always talk about the compulsoraries. Just like ice skaters in the Olympics have compulsoraries, they have things they have to do. You have to do the triple toe lutz, so you're not going to get a medal. I think the drum corps has some compulsoraries and things that traditionally you have to do. You know that you're always going to have the part where the math goes crazy and there's just a lot of frenetic drill. You know you're going to have the part where the horn line stands still and plays really loud and the color guard spins the biggest flags you've ever seen in your life. There are just things that traditionally you have to hit the mark on. When we started designing the show, those were the first things we really kind of keyed in on. At the end of this song, we're going to stand still, and this is what the form is going to be because it has to do with the theme, and we're going to play really loud. And, it's been a great experience. Then we back up from the excited, right part of the brain and then start to deal with how do we make that all work together. A good example of that would be that if you have one moment, we have to shift the horn line around. We may have to move the drum line to somewhere or the color guard to somewhere for the next moment. Well, that takes counts. Sure. So we already had one example of that this year where going into the second piece, the color guard needed to go to one of their zones that we'll learn more about this weekend and the part that they play in the show and get the new piece of equipment. That takes counts. So you got to make the right phone calls. You got to call Chuck. You got to call Andrew and say, hey, I need more counts. Part of the game that we play visually is just not having a bad transition. Have the people in the right place at the right time, but don't have a bad transition to get them there. And sometimes having a great moment's one thing, but if you have a great moment filled with, a bad moment immediately after because you just weren't paying attention to the details, you're going to pay the price. But I will tell you, the world is going to be blown away by the presentation this year. It is non-stop, start to finish. Even the soft moments are exciting, and that's hard to do.
Absolutely. What do we have coming up? We got camp this weekend. You're in. We've got the rest of our design team is in. Ed is in. Andrew is flying down. Chuck's going to be here. We've got our normal brass, percussion, visual staff with us. The color guard is back for the first time since December. So I guess and we can talk a little bit about the goals of the weekend. But from your perspective, what do we want to be able to do on Sunday and walk away saying, okay, we have 4 weeks till spring training. Look at where we are, and that's it. Maybe you just any comments on that?
Yeah, this is actually going to be the first time the entire design team is together since we
Rick Subel's here. Sorry, I forgot. Rick's here.
So it's going to be a big Crossman love fest where we all kind of get to look at the product and identify the things that are working pretty well, but we really need to be able to get more out of them. And also identify some things that are already written, already designed that we are going to have to take special interest in. The design staff really this weekend is just going to make sure that all the ideas we talked about and all the notes that we took in the first weekend in November have made it out to the field, have made it to what we're going to show the public. This is a really, really important weekend for the Crossmen because it's kind of the first time that everybody gets together, and we had talked about that Crossman machine. Sure. Well, the staff also has to be part of that. We have to learn how to work with each other. Just like anything in the world, there are different voices that may speak louder than others, and we just need to learn how to best work as a team, because if we have a team at the top of it, by the time it gets to the membership, they're going to be well taken care of. On Sunday, I think the big goal is, hey, this works or it doesn't work, and the things that aren't working, to immediately get on them. I want to make sure that any concerns that we have are dealt with in San Antonio in April and not in California in June.
Absolutely. It's interesting to say it's the first time we're all together, and on the flip side, that's actually the last time we're all together before we get to, spring training. We're doing all this stuff, so it's not like, okay, first time we're all together, and we've got a couple more times to work this out, and then suddenly we're moving into Blossom Athletic Center. And but no, I mean, this is it. This is our chance. It's time. Drum Corps is here, and we've set something up, I think, kind of special on Sunday afternoon after camp that I think is going to be really cool for our staff and for our design team. And we really wanted to make sure that we brought everybody together since we're all here. And we also have our member leadership that will be joining us for this. We were doing a workshop for our listeners out there. We're doing a little team building workshop that I think is going to really just talk to kind of blend our personalities and really kind of see how things work together. And I think it's going to be a really great event for our staff, and everyone seems real jazzed about participating in that and making sure that's something that is going to happen. So we'll end camp just an hour earlier than normal, and then we've got a little bit of time that we'll meet together and have a nice little catered meal and be together as a team and really essentially say, okay, here it is. Now we're moving to spring training. Let's get to work and do that kind of stuff. So.
Before we go on our next break, kind of going back a little bit, I know you were talking about the different people you were involved with. Vint Ferguson, he asked a question online: who are some of the DCI drill riders / designers of the past and present that have influenced you or that you're good friends with, or anybody that you want to comment on?
It's once again, I've been around for a while. I think that Gary Chapinski, who back in the old days took the cemetery out of it when he was at the Santa Clara Vanguard. It kind of started through him. I've had some favorites. John Brazali, when he was at the Phantom Regiment, I think I always, when I'm riding drill at 2 a.m, I always wait for the ghost of John Brazali to visit me, to bring the bath to me. We can't forget about Brubaker and his time at the Cavaliers. Today, there are a lot of young, talented people out there, and I kind of get a kick out of the fact that I taught some of them at the Glassman. Tim Fairbanks, who is now at the Blue Stars, he's an old student of mine. Richard Henshaw, well, let's not forget him. He's an old student of mine. There are just a ton of talented people out there right now that I think are responsible for kind of taking the activity to the next level. We just couldn't be the same thing as we were for all those years. Last year was a great year for Drum Corps. There were a lot of talented designers that are young, and I think that they're being mentored very well by some of the older gentlemen. You can't do anything without talking about the Michael Cesarios of the world and the influence that they have. I try to be me, but we all have people that we looked at when we were younger, when we were 18, and we never dreamed that we would ever write for a top 12 drum corps. And you look at those people and remember how helpful they've been. There are a lot of great, talented people out there, and I'm not meaning to leave anybody out. We could go down the list of the Zingalis and all the people who are around. All of our alumni right now have big smiles on their face because I'm naming people who were very prevalent in the activity when they marched for the Crossmen. I'm proud to be able to say that we're going to be one of them, and that my name someday will, be spoke with theirs.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're visiting with Mike Hardiak and our resident DJs, Rico and Joel, who are here for the Bones Hour. And we're back. This is the Crossman Bones Hour. We are visiting with our visual designer, Mike Hardiak, and this is Joel and Rico from our Crossman admin team, filling in today for Mark Purnell, who is on a brief vacation today, and we are just so thrilled that he allowed us to continue to make our broadcast, and we're just thrilled for this format and thankful for all that Mark does for us and the drum corps. I was telling Mike at our break, it was kind of funny, we got that last message from Vint, and just as Vint sent that message and we read it, I got an iText on my phone, and Vint is our iText guy, so that's pretty cool, and we're glad to see that up and running. If you haven't signed up for iText yet, make sure you get on our website and click on that link and get your cell phone signed up, because a portion of those proceeds go to help the drum corps. Speaking of proceeds, we're going to shift gears just for a minute and talk about our uniform. And no, we're not giving away any secrets on the uniform here at today's show, but we are thrilled. We have reached our goal of $37,500. In fact, we've surpassed our goal for this year. We were able to raise the funds through this great uniform drive, so a big shout out to all of our wonderful donors, to all the folks that have sponsored us, including our friends from HEB, that made a sizable donation, $2,500 to our uniform fund for this year. So we're really thrilled with that, and we're really excited that those uniforms have gone to production, and we will debut them here in 2014 and should arrive probably around the second week of June or the first week of June from our friends at Fred J. Miller. And Michael Cesario put together a great design. Mike, you want to comment on it without commenting on it, I guess?
Yeah, with the Crossman, we are who we are, and you can't venture too far from that. So it's a little bit of a challenge, but I think that we really came together well, that when you look at it, you know it's the Crossman, and it also is a look that we can take into the future a lot of bit, in all honesty. The people who were in charge of that really took the ball and did a fabulous job designing it. It's going to go great with our theme this year, and also will work for years to come.
Yeah, it's great, and like I said, we didn't want to give away too much. Our donors, all those that generously donated, are going to get a little sneak peek coming in their inbox.
They should be checking their email a little bit in about an hour or so, sometime today.
Maybe sometime today there's going to be a little sneak peek in their inbox. So make sure, for all of you listening out there, if you donated, take a quick peek. Our members are probably going to have a chance to see it this weekend. And, we don't want to give away too much too soon, but I think we said in our last show that we have white Aussies. That was the one thing we were willing to give away. So we will have a white Aussie as part of the uniform for this year. And like Mike said, I think you're going to know it's Crossman. It's distinctively really utilizes the things that we've come to recognize, the iconic sort of image, and the white Aussie obviously has a lot to do with that. But it's going to be really great, and the corps is going to look fantastic. And like I said, we're real thankful for all of our donors, to our friends at Fred J. Miller, and to our wonderful sponsor, HEB, that helped supply that for us. So that's fantastic. Show announcement, we talked about it just briefly a minute. It's coming to everyone this weekend. What are we looking for? What's going to be the draw? I mean, you've commented a little bit on it, but what are we going to find that's something pretty awesome?
Well, and without slipping up and letting the cat out of the bag, I think that everybody, from the alumni to the current members and the audience, is really going to be taken in by how much of a part they can play in the show. We can do things daily to emphasize what our show is about as we tour this great land of ours. I'm really excited because it's a show theme that we can live, and it can grow as the season goes on, and I think it's a show that was really, in all honesty, made for the Crossman, and I'm looking forward for the announcement so that we can start pushing that forward.
Sure. What do you tell us about? We're going to California, so that's a big draw, I think, for the 2014 season. Something Crossman going west this year. What kind of reaction do you think we're going to get out in California for this show that we put together? I mean, I think typically Crossman, well, obviously for many, many, many years, was an East Coast drum corps. We've found our new home here in San Antonio for the last 8 years, and now we're taking the tour west, and we haven't been out there in quite some time. And obviously, we were out there in 2007 for drum corps finals. We're in Pasadena, and we did a little stretch that happened leading up to drum corps finals. But as far as the corps being out and touring California. I think it's been at least since the early 80s, according to my knowledge, my brief knowledge on it. So if anybody's out there listening and can correct me, please, send us a quick note on our on Facebook or through our Spreaker website. But what do you think is going to be the reaction in California? What are people going to say?
I think they're going to love us. It has been a while since the Crossmen have been out there. There are a lot of people who only see the regional drum corps shows, and if you don't go to them, they're not going to see you. They're going to wait for the video to come out. They're not going to make the trip to Indianapolis. I'm very excited about it. I think that we're going to be welcome out there, and I'll try to be as politically correct as possible, but we're going out there to be overwhelming. We're really going to go out there and show the world our best. Whenever you get on that coast and deal with those drum corps, you better show up having your act together. And it's been a driving force, I think, in a lot of the decisions that have been made leading up to us. We want to make sure before we go to California that we're ready to be in California. And then that comes from the design team all the way through the membership. I think it's going to help us competitively throughout the year because you're right in it right away. And you're taking on some of the best drum corps in the world. And, it's important to take our tradition as the Crossmen out to be with those traditions. There are some very proud corps on the West Coast, but you know what? There's a proud corps from San Antonio that's going to go play a part in that.
We're going to come out of the gates, I guess,
that's
is
right.
the thing. And we're going to not that you wouldn't come out of the gate strong, but it's one of those things, I think, particularly on the West Coast and the lineups that you see right away. It's like we've got to come out, and our act's got to be together. It's got to be awesome, and I think we're setting ourselves up for that too. As we get to the end of spring training, for all of our fans out there, there's some great opportunities for you to see Crossmen in San Antonio prior to our return for the big regional event in July 19th, in San Antonio. We've got a couple of things that happen at the end of our spring training. Our marching music extravaganza, our MMX event that's happening on Friday the 13th of June. So that's going to be a really great event, and we've been working hard on that, and hopefully Rico can chime in a little bit on some of that. But we've got Genesis, we've got Guardians, we've got obviously our Crossmen teams, we've got drumline battle happening on the front part of that. We've got some other things that are going on. You want to comment a little bit on that, Rico?
It's just going to be a great weekend. I know last year was hindered a little by the weather, so hopefully we'll have good weather this year. But it's just great to see the community here in San Antonio and the area just get bigger and bigger. I know we weren't sure if we were going to put on a show last year. We had to stay under the bleachers. The fans and the drum corps had to stay under the bleachers. But people still waited out for hours just to watch us perform. Some people kind of drove in from the surrounding areas like Seguin and maybe even some people from the Valley, too, that are watching their kids. But we're really excited for this year's event to make it bigger and better than ever, and hopefully it'll grow on for the next year and the next year after that. We just got the tickets in today, actually. Tickets were printed, and we received them today in the mail, so you can buy them online at crossman.org.
Yes, so make sure you get your MMX ticket. If you're interested, we've got a 1 mile fun run that's happening on Saturday, June 14th. That was a great success for us last year. It was our first annual last year, so this is our second annual event. Our Run Your Brass Off 1 mile fun run that just has been kicked off again, and we've announced that time. It's going to be at 7:30 a.m. on Saturday, June 14th at Blossom Athletic Center, and it should be a great event, and I know Mark would be talking a lot about it if he was here. He's been our real go-to point for that, but if you sign up before June 10th, you get a ticket to the MMX event that's happening on June 13th, so that's a $10 value.
Yeah, that's already a $10 value right there.
It's $20 of registration. If you pay your $20 registration, you get the $10 MMX ticket, you get a T-shirt, you get entered into to the Mark Purnell door prize drawing, and you've got some light refreshments and some other great things that come with being part of the fun run. And I think there's a couple of great prizes depending on your age group and some other things, and it should be a really great event.
We have the age group separated. First one starts at 13 and under, and the last one we have is 70 and over. And because of one of our members last year, Gavin James, Mark Purnell decided to add a award for the fastest time. So the first male runner to run a mile under 4:30 will receive $200, and the first female runner to finish their mile under 5 minutes will get $200. So I know some of our members are listening, and they've been training, so I know they're going to go for that number as well as other people. So it'll be interesting to see. I know Mark said last time, one of his friends of the family or something kind of came up to him because he does a lot of other events at local schools, and I believe it was a middle school or young high school student, said, "I heard you were giving out money for this event." I was like, I can run a mile in this much. I'm going to steal your money. So,
yeah. Well, and there's the sign up too. We want to encourage any of our middle school or high school band participants of any kind. We're giving out some awards for any of those groups that have the most amount of people participating in this event. So there's a lot of really great prizes, a lot of great things happening on our big Crossman weekend. We also have our Experience Day that's happening on Friday, June 13th. We invite local high school band students, color guard students, can be a woodwind player, could be a brass player, could be a color guard student, to come and basically hang out with the Crossmen for a day. And you get to work with our world-class staff. You get a chance to perform in the MMX event with the Crossman horn line. So that's a really great opportunity, and I encourage any of our listeners out there, if you know some folks, send them our way. It runs basically from noon to 5 on that day, and then the performance later that evening. So we really have an action-packed weekend before we head out west and we go to California. So we've got Experience Day, we've got our MMX event, we've got our fun run. Then that Saturday of the fun run, we end up in Austin to do a performance on the steps of the Capitol. And then the next day on Sunday, we do a showcase in the square in Southlake, Texas, which is up near the Dallas area. So we have a lot of things happening. Boom, 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 right away on that weekend. And then we head out west, and it's going to be awesome. So, so I hope everyone will be able to participate in any of those things. So, Mike? Well, we won't see you probably at that part of the summer, but you're joining us in California, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I'll be here for move-ins. We just need to make sure that the right product's out there, and any last-minute changes that need to be made, that I'm accessible. And then I leave for a little bit, and I catch back up with the Corps. I would not miss that California tour for anything. I'm really excited about it. It's been a great motivator.
Well, that's fantastic. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll wrap up here with our last 15 minutes of our Bones Hour. This is Joel, Enrico, and our guest Mike, who is here with us for camp this weekend and filling in for Mark Purnell today here on the Bones Hour. That was our 92 Crossman. Celebrated Earth Day just a couple of days ago. There's a great example. That was our first in the Songs for the Planet Earth trilogy from back then. And then some of you saw on our Facebook, we posted a link to our 2012 opener, Earth Song by Michael Jackson. So that was pretty cool. Always a nice little throwback to some of the heydays of the Crossmen, and we're looking forward to our own heyday here in 2014. And we're here with Mike Hardiak, our drill designer for Crossmen in 2014, and this is Joel and Rico, and we are just working through the last little segment of our show this afternoon. We are pleased to be here on the Bones Hour, filling in for Mark Purnell, who is on a short vacation. And we are talking everything Crossman. Rico, what you got for us?
I know in the earlier you spoke about how you came to be a drill rider and stuff like that, but for anybody else that is interested in doing something like that, I know I was when I first kind of aged out and was looking to something to do. I still wanted to do drum corps, and I was lucky to be here on staff at Crossman, but anybody who's just out of college, just out of drum corps, what would you tell them, and what encouragement would you give them if they wanted to become some sort of drill designer or on a visual staff somewhere?
Yeah, the first thing I would tell them is don't be afraid to get a piece of paper out and do some writing on paper. We do lean a lot on the computer now. I write the Crossman drill was written on a computer, and it's great for a lot of things. It does a lot of things for you, but also it allows you to take a lot of shortcuts. And I think that it really affects the learning curve when you just are hoping that the computer is going to do all the work for you. Believe it or not, that there is drill paper out there, and I think that I was lucky enough to learn originally on paper, and that helped me understand how form flow, readability, all those things that you have to learn, and hopefully after 25 years you do. You're going to make some mistakes, and you're going to do some funny things. An example of that would be, I'll never forget the first time that I put flutes at a one-step horizontally, or you put the trombones at a two-step vertically, and you just learn that. And
that's because of the nature of those instruments,
right? The flute sticks out the right side of your head, so it can be damaging. And that was one of the first things I got a big kick out of the first Crossman camp, when I was out there measuring everything to make sure I hadn't made any mistakes with how big our contras are, our tubas, and just stick with it. And you can watch what other people do, and it'll give you ideas, but don't be afraid to be your own designer. The world already has plenty of people who look like other people. Don't be afraid to go out and make some mistakes and take some chances, and stick with it. It's something that I've been doing it professionally for 25 years, and I still don't know that I've got it figured out. Know that you can learn. You're not going to know everything right away. You're not going to know everything after many years doing it. But just keep pushing yourself to try different things and come up with your own look. That's one of the things that I'm really excited about this year. The Crossman, we aren't going to look like it. We're going to look like the Crossman of 2014. We're not going to go out and try to look like any other corps. We're just going to try to be better than them and do things smarter than them.
How would you say, just to comment briefly, you alluded to it a little bit ago, but technology obviously has changed exponentially, probably, from even when I first started trying to figure out how to put some dots on a page for marching band techniques class in my undergraduate. But the technology's changed a lot. Pieware and any of those programs that are those type of drill writing programs. Has it been advantageous? Has it been not advantageous? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages?
There are a lot of things that's good for it. The fact that you can animate things, it does a lot of good. Even when we watch the animation of this year's show on the computer, right away if you're covering enough ground, if there's enough horizontal motion. The animation helps. Another big help is it numbers the drill for you, and it cuts that out. Some of the disadvantages are it makes a lot of shortcuts really easy to take. And if it gets late in the night and you think, oh, well, I could do it this way and it would take half the time and the computer will do all the work for me, the product is going to suffer. So don't be afraid to turn the computer off and make some sketches on a piece of paper and then turn the computer back on. You'll see parts of this year's Crossman show that when you look at it right away, you'll know, oh, I bet that wasn't that neat initially because he probably tried to do it on a computer. Turn the computer off, write it out, turn the computer back on, and let the computer make the math out of it again.
Are people still using pencil and paper? Do people still write drill pencil paper? Do you know people?
It's funny that you say that because the first Crossman camp, I had brought my drill paper and some pencils with me, and the visual staff looked at me like I was pounding papyrus into into drill paper. And the honest truth is, I still use it. When I was working on the ending of the Crossman show last night, there was a lot of sketches and a lot of drill paper. I'm a traditionalist, and I think that even the corps that are at the top level of our activity, those guys still get a piece of drill paper out every once in a while and sketch it out.
Interesting. We're going to see a cross at the end of the show. Are you not going to give it away yet? That's somebody asked a question earlier.
No, but we could talk a little bit without giving the show away. That we have a motif in the show, and the motif that has to do with our theme shows up in the drill. We thought it was really important to have a motif that each individual would have, a body motion, but also and each song have a drill motif come through so that it reminds the world what our show is. So you'll just have to see. I think that as far as the cross goes, that the better question is, are we going to see a cross made a way we've never seen it made? I think that's a better question because, how can we make it? How can we do it where nobody else has done it? You got to remember the crossmen have been around a lot of years.
And I think that cross has appeared a number of times, to say the least. So maybe that's what we'll offer that as our trivia question for the day, since we typically have a trivia question. How many Crossman shows have had the cross in them? And so think back, that's a lot of shows. So this is our 40th year. So how many Crossman shows have had the Maltese cross appear in some form of another? I'll be honest with you, I don't know the answer to that. So I'm going to have to go and find out. If someone knows the answer, feel free. Go ahead and email us or write in. You'll get credit on the next show, I guess, for answering the trivia question. So, to just kind of wrap up, we've only got a few more minutes with us today. It sounds like things are pretty exciting here in Crossman Land, and some of us are sort of entrenched in the day-to-day operation of the drum corps. So we always like to hear people's outside perspective, kind of looking in and saying, okay, and you alluded to it a little bit before, the Crossman machine, and things are working, and there's so many great things that are going on, and obviously that's great for us to hear. We want to keep doing those things, but we're always kind of curious to know what other folks are thinking and where their head's at and going, is this happening over there? Are we doing the right thing? Are we doing that? So to hear you talk about that a little bit, and it's interesting. We've got this 40th year. We have a rich heritage that has started up in the Northeast in Pennsylvania, and we've kind of stabilized ourselves here in San Antonio. And I wonder if there's anything that sticks out in your mind from being an East Coast drum corps to being a Southwest drum corps, I guess is what you call it. I don't know, a Texas drum corps. What would be different? Is there anything or is it still Crossman or Crossman? It's just in a different location.
Yeah, I think that the traditions just moved south. That's been the best part of the experience is, we all knew the Crossmen when they were out east, and we knew what they stood for. And, there's a different address. Besides that, the traditions live on. I've got a big kick out of just interacting with some of the alumni. And, I think everybody's just kind of hip and happy that there's a Crossman. Just because it's in San Antonio doesn't mean it's not the Crossman. It's just another zip code. We just need to make sure not to take this thing for granted. It's a fabulous thing that we all are a part of. It just happens to be in Texas. It's still the Crossman. There's still swagger. And I think that from the very beginning, there has been a lot of effort put into making sure that the membership comes out of it learning a lot of great things. And you can learn those great things no matter where that drum corps is homed out of.
Absolutely. And I think we saw some of that, from our alumni base and even looking at, the uniform campaign. People want to make that part of Crossman. They want to be part of Crossman. And so just because there's an updated look maybe, or just because there's a few updates and modern improvements doesn't mean it's inherently still not the Crossman. There's some really great traditions, and Rico and I are both alums of the Corps, and I think we see a lot of things that continue, and even to this day that, probably at the time didn't think, it didn't seem like a big deal. But now, you look fast forward, it's been 14 years since I wore the Crossman uniform. It's hard to believe, but that to me is kind of exciting. And I think and even really cool is in the last little while we've really tried to take a vested interest in the community, particularly of San Antonio, obviously, and trying to reach out. And our partners at SAA 2020, San Antonio 2020, that have a new initiative by the mayor of the city of San Antonio to make improvements and civic participation and do those things. And we really tried to actively engage Crossman in being part of that. So I think there's an effort to reach out and celebrate our heritage and constantly trying to move the envelope forward and be part of our current community in doing that. So I think it's great to hear that. I guess that people outside of the Crossman organizations, or at least until now, see the same things that we want to be exhibiting and want to be a part of. So what else we got, Rico? We're about out of time, I think, and So thank you, everyone. Thank you to Mike. We really appreciate you
fun.
being here, and it's been a great time. And everybody else, stay tuned for some big announcements coming down the pike very soon. We've got a show announcement. We've got a uniform unveiling. We've got April camp, and then next thing you know, we're moving in. And 2014 is well underway. And then, of course, it'll be August 10th, and we'll be starting all over again. But thank you to everybody for listening. Big thank you to Mark Purnell for letting us utilize your Bones Hour. And this is the Crossman Bones Hour. Joel, Rico, Mike, thank you guys, and see you guys next week.